Permission. As a child, we ask for permission from our parents, other trusted adults, teachers, and sometimes our friends. As an adult, we still look for permission. However, many times it is us who stand in our own way. In this episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast, Kim O'Hara, book coach, author, and permission expert, shares her incredible backstory. She wrote a book about her experience dealing with sexual abuse. She shares about becoming a single mom and having to work at a Trader Joe's. She has gone on to help authors get their work published, and now she is helping women find a way to give themselves permission. Listen in to hear more of Kim's incredible journey. To connect with Kim, go to kimohara.com or kimoharaauthor.com. On Facebook and Instagram, connect with her via Kim O'Hara Coaching. That's Kim O'Hara Coaching. And her book, No Longer Denying Sexual Abuse, is available on Amazon and other platforms. Follow Today's the Day Changemakers on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. Don't forget to subscribe to the Today is the Day Changemakers YouTube channel and go to todayisthedayliveit.com to sign up for our newsletter. There are so many new things happening through Today is the Day. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I'm your host, Jody Grinwald. And as I say in every episode, I interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who are just disrupting the status quo in the best way possible. And today I have Kim O'Hara with me. Hi, Kim.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and so honored to be considered a change maker.
Oh, you absolutely are. And I cannot wait to get into this conversation because even in our pre-conversation, we had such great energy and you just have like so much to share. Before we get to that, I'm going to share a little bit about you in your bio, but not your whole thing, or it would take up the entire episode because it's so good. So Kim is a book coach and author and has guided over 50 plus thought leaders, speakers, and business visionary clients through the daunting journey of book discovery and an author game plan. Featured as the Today Show Motivational Book of the Month on the Kelly Clarkson Show. Awesome. So exciting. Wall Street Journal top 10 business books and #1 in Barnes & Noble nonfiction, as well as countless Amazon bestsellers. Her clients use their books to position themselves as the go-to authority for mere new brands and share stories that resonate with audiences. Kim is the author of the self-help No Longer Denying Sexual Abuse, Making the Choices That Can Change Your Life. She has contributed to the LA Times popular column LA Affairs, as well as prestigious literary journals as an essayist. And she's been featured in CEO World, Biz, Women Magazine, Life Coach Magazine, and Pro Age Woman, just to name a few. And she is passionate about books, finding the right home. She has launched an imprint based in New York City. And there's just so much more I could have added in there. But congratulations to all that you're doing. But I also want to say that you also write a weekly Substack column called Give Yourself Permission, based on her up-and-coming book. So your up-and-coming book, Give Yourself Permission. I just love the whole concept of it. And being now a woman over 50, which is hard to say out loud. When I turned 50, I said, this feels like 40 with permission. So even though I don't typically start at the end in mind, I do want to start with this whole give yourself permission concept because I adore it. So tell us about it, Kim.
100%. I mean, after I wrote the sexual abuse book, there was a lot of self-actualization, personal development. Obviously, the goal of writing any book is service to the reader, right? So I had it in mind that I would be able to heal and help millions of people that have suffered some form of abuse. Once I had gone through that cathartic process on my own, I went on a writing retreat in France. This was in 2023. And I had the plan to write about this house I bought as a single woman. I had wanted to buy a house for 7 years. I had saved 15% of every check. We're talking $100 in the bank account. It seemed like it was never going to happen. Bought this house and wrote this memoir about it. Went to France and kind of came back and was like, it wasn't so much about the house. It was about the permission I had given myself to do this out of the box. I bought in an area of LA that not a lot of people would buy in. I trusted my path. And literally within 2 months, I had downloaded this entire book on permission. And it was about, how we as women second guess our impulses and our intuition on some of like the most out of the box, ideas. We want someone to tell us it's going to work out okay. We want other people to give us permission that are unqualified, far less qualified than we even are, because we know everything we really need to know and we doubt that. And it was really about the shame and the blame that we carry around, kind of preemptively worrying about getting it wrong and the judgment that's going to come, that we should have known better, which holds us back from really doing what's authentic to us within that permission space. So I had to give myself permission to be the person who's been basically chosen by the universe to have this platform. And I still struggle with, I'm not Brene Brown yet, but I'm not a PhD. I'm not this. I'm just a woman who happened to download a concept that I feel I am the expert to bring it out into the world. And so that's what I've been starting to do.
It's so much of what you said. There's so many ways to go here, because I'm right on the bandwagon with you of that feeling of like, you feel like you've been chosen to do something, but then you question yourself. I'm not the Brene Brown yet. And I say that because we all have that little bit of imposter syndrome when we feel like we know
Mhm.
something so well, yet we're still learning too. But not everybody's willing to share their voice about what they know, right? And even if somebody knows more than us, there's still people that don't know as much as of us, as much as us. And the people that need to listen and hear the messages will. That
Mhm.
permission piece is truly unbelievable, in that most people and in society, we feel like we have to gain permission from the outside in order to do something on the inside, including
Right.
when I started this podcast. So
Mhm.
there's a woman listening right now, me, a man listening right now, that is looking for that feeling, that burst, that somebody to tell them they should or could or need to do X. What do you share with them? How do you give a little advice on how they give themselves permission to do what they love? And for those who are watching the YouTube video, my puppy will continue to make appearances behind me, just so you know.
Oh, the
Sorry,
puppy is
Kim.
killing me right now. Killing me. It's hard to go. I just saw him go by with the toy. I'm like, wait, what are we talking about? Wait, what podcast?
Problem is, if I put him in his crate, he will scream and we'll hear that instead. And nobody wants to hear
If we
that.
can't talk with puppies, we're screwed. So, to answer your question, the book is obviously in the personal development self-help space. So I am obviously giving lots of good advice as I go through. And I'm also doing these permission panels, right? Where women are coming together in person to really, audience members are getting up and they're sharing where they need permission, because I believe permission can be granted in community that is also fostering the same ideals, right? So what happens is we're in our own world, we're in our own bubble, we're self-isolating. It's very hard to give yourself permission when you're completely by yourself all the time. And so I feel like this permission community concept is really where the solution lies, right? Because I've watched these women that I've never met before come to my panel. They listen to four experts who are really just like all of us, talk about where they've given themselves permission in career, relationships, what have you, parenting, which is a big one. Um, and then the audience gets up and they talk about where they have given themselves permission, or where they desperately want to be given permission, and how much they desire that. And so a lot of it is just an acknowledgement of being able to speak out and say, here is something I want to do, and I want to give myself permission to just be happy, just feel joy. I mean, really, we have to start with a baseline. You can't go right to, I'm giving myself permission to like launch a company. You have to go, I'm giving myself permission to do what makes me happy. And from there, the wealth will come.
That is so very true. It's a step process. It's kind of like learning muscle memory, right? Like going to the
Mhm.
gym, and that permission piece. It has to start out slow, I feel like. And
Yeah.
And I remember when I wanted to start the podcast, and I share this because I want to just give everybody a theme of a real instance here, is that I thought, who's going to listen? Who's going to care? Who am I to talk to change makers in the right around the world?
Mm,
Until COVID hit and the perspective was gone. And I thought about all the incredible people I met and could continue to meet like you, and somehow
mm,
gave myself permission
mhm.
to launch it no matter what, because whoever needed the message would receive the message. So I think that it is a phenomenal topic, and I give you so much credit for bringing it up and making it available and making it more of a real conversation, as opposed to us hiding behind the weight of who's going to say yes over here, you should do it. Is there anything
Right.
else you want to share? And the book, when is that coming out?
So the book is currently being, there's a final edit that I'm doing with the book. And I'm also shopping it to a few agents who want to see interviews like this, and they want to know that I'm out there talking about it, and they want to know that there's a platform for it. Because, we ask publishers to get into the ring with us. We've got to do the work too. And that's something I always tell my clients as a book coach. Like, if you want a successful book, you've got to be willing to go out there and talk about it. It's just not like a magical thing. And so I'm hoping by the end of the end of this year, 2025, the book will be moving forward into the publishing process. But in the meanwhile, I am continuing to look for opportunities to speak on permission, look for opportunities to bring panels to women's groups and other cities besides Los Angeles, because I've only done them in Los Angeles. I'd love to bring them to, Dallas and Austin and Boston and, well, those rhyme. But, and just kind of spread the word and get this building. And, I want something to build across the country, because I'll tell you something that came up in my last panel that was really interesting is a woman came up to me around our age, mid 50s. I'm mid 50s. She might have even been 60, retired, right? So now she's retired. And she said, this is a huge time for women to step into permission, because we're in a country where our rights are going to be questioned, not even fundamentally as women, but fundamentally as citizens of the United States, right? So, what are the new rules we're going to live by? And it really got me thinking, because it's one thing to say to somebody, I give you permission to go out, and then not have any sort of guidelines, right? So she said, how are we going to rewrite some of these new rules? And I thought that's, like, again, an interesting conversation to be fostered within community.
It is. It truly is. And let's just be very clear too. We're not ever giving permission to anybody to do anything inappropriate, incorrect. The permission, I always like to have a little bit of an asterisk to that. Because everybody's thought process is very different.
Hmm.
And I love what you just said, because it is true. Women, our entire world is changing, isn't it? And I think
Yes.
it's really important that we look at the way society kind of dictates, doesn't it? On how things are viewed, women are
Right.
viewed, and I think at this point, it's going to be a very interesting time. I think without you even realizing the timing of when this was all happening and the message came to you about permission, you might
Yeah.
not have even realized what the outside world was going to look like at the time, right?
Right. I mean, that's been a journey for me for a very long time. Part of being like a sexual abuse survivor is you have like you're like an empath, because you've disassociated from your body for so long to cope. So when you finally learn how to go back into your body, you're very connected to sort of the swirl and energy of the systems around us. So right before COVID happened, I was actually on a shamanic retreat in Mexico literally a month before. And we all knew there something big was coming. You could feel it in the wind, you could feel it in the moon, you could feel it in the energy, but you didn't know what, right? You just knew. I knew I was there to ground into something. So I went into COVID very spiritually powerful, very spiritually empowered. And that's when I bought my house and I made more money than I've ever made in my life. I was ready for that environment, right? And that's why when I came back from this book writing retreat and that downloaded to me, something inside of me knew, and I don't read politics at all. My partner has to tell me everything that's going on. I just go from the body, right? Like, what do we know? What do we need to do? And I did want to make one quick follow-up comment on your asterisks, if I may.
Yes.
Um, I never give people permission to try to assert themselves in a way that provokes some kind of dominance or abuse, unkindness, or superiority over people. I come from a 12-step program where we are taught to check our ego at the door. And I believe and have seen a million different ways that you can give yourself permission that doesn't harm others. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing that up. It's really
Yeah.
important. I
No,
might have
thank
to
you.
include that in my book because I don't think I wrote that in my book. I'm making a note.
Aw. Well, I'm glad that it came up here on this podcast today.
Yeah. I'm a
You
writer.
know,
It's always, I gotta write it down. It's like, it's gotta happen.
yeah, I get it because I'm writing a book too. And that's what and I want to get to so much with you here. Is that you brought up and we're gonna get into how you became a book coach and all of that, but you just brought up about, and I always say this to my listeners, when somebody shares about something so vulnerably, and a topic. And you wrote a book called No Longer Denying Sexual Abuse, Making the Choices That Can Change Your Life. That's a lot to go through, and there are a lot of people out there. I had, as you and I spoke, I had another podcast guest that had been through sexual abuse
Right.
as a child from a trusted adult. And I think it's so important to share how the process of coming out from that, and that it is possible to do so for those
Hmm.
who may be listening, that may be
Yeah.
dealing with it and don't know how to process.
Hmm. The key thing about the title of my book is denial. So if you look at Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, the first one is denial. So you have to go through the grieving process to come to terms with what's been done to you, right? And so if you choose to never enter that process, and the first step is that denial, overcoming that denial, you will live a half life. You just will. You may never know that unless you open it up to be examined. I opened up my life to be thoroughly examined under a microscope after I faced and came out of denial that I had been abused. And I had to re-examine, surrender, you know, negotiate with all the constructs and behaviors that I had used to get me through to the point of like 42 years old, only to discover most of those behaviors were misaligned with who I truly am. If that sounds like a lot of heavy lifting, it is. And it doesn't have to be that much heavy lifting, but you do have to accept that you've been abused and then be willing to want a life that looks different than the life you were previously living. Because once you make that choice to re-examine everything under the, it's been under the shroud of abuse, you will discover so many new things about yourself. I I wouldn't go so far to say being abused was a gift, but I would go so far to say that there is a gift within the recovery, for sure.
For those who are also listening that are saying, I don't want anybody to know, you put yourself out there. You know what I'm saying? There
Mhm.
is also, from what I've heard, this feeling of shame, this feeling of my fault. There's, lots of different things that go through people's minds when they're dealing with something that they have lost control of. They have no control of the situation. What do you share with those who feel like I'm scared to share? And
Mhm.
to me, it sounds like, and I could be so wrong in this, part of the process may be about the share, but it doesn't necessarily have to be with the world. You were very brave in writing a book about it.
Mhm. There is a process of telling others that I had to go through before I even considered writing the book. And I've mentioned this, I don't know if we talked about this, but this book was not originally a self-help book. This book was originally in 2017 a memoir called Kicking Abuse in the Ass. And I published it under a press and basically buried it because I wasn't ready to actually tell the world. I had to go through a lot more personal development, and then I sent that I got the rights back through sort of a divine intervention, sent that manuscript to BQB Publishing, who's my publisher of this book. And the owner of that company, who has had history with this, said to me, I will take this book on if you rewrite 75% of the book. So, into a self-help book. One of the categories, and I did, I rewrote 75%, and I'm so grateful because now it really serves better as a self-help book versus a memoir. And it's me telling my story, but it's telling my story with also a lot of like advice and like exercises and like tips, right? And that telling others chapter is very rife with advice on the various levels and various ways in which you can tell people, including family members, partners. But what I do always say is you don't have to ever really tell the world. You could just go tell the pastor at your church. You could go tell the sponsor in your AA program or whatever, your 12-step program. You could tell your best friend. And generally, people are so kind and so understanding about it. And the people that aren't, that might be a clue you don't need them in your world.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know for some that's hard to hear or hard to understand because they don't want to lose people who you brought up another word earlier that goes directly with this, and that's the word judgment. And,
Mhm.
I truly believe if we all just stop judging each other, just even 50% less, we would all be way happier. Um, we can't take on other people's judgment and what and that goes back to the permission. You have permission not to take on someone's
Other
judgment.
people's stuff. Yeah, you have permission to let them. There could be two emotions in the room. If they don't agree or they don't want to go on your journey, they have their own reasons. They have their own stuff that they're dealing with that is really none of your business. I, do not have a relationship today with my mother, which I believe didn't 100% start falling apart when I told her about the abuse. But it has been slowly falling apart ever since, to the point where we don't talk anymore. Um, which is
Sorry.
probably because of this. And that brings me a lot of periodically, even as secure as I am, every once in a while, there's that thought of like, did I just make this up? Did I just like come up with this shit? Is there something wrong with me? I mean, my mind could go there so fast. So if I'm a fully realized, evolved author of a whole book who's been in tons of therapy and is super secure, and I still have that thought, I can only imagine the amount of thoughts that someone would have who has not gone through the process of healing as much as I have. And I'm here to say those thoughts are so normal. I write about it in the book early on in recovery, probably 2.5 years in. I said to my AA sponsor, what happens if I've made this all up? And she goes, who the heck would ever do that? And I was like, oh, you're right. She goes, what? You think that's not exactly what one does to be popular. And I was like, oh God, you're right. But our mind will tell us like it's hard. I think it's so hard to face that someone like a parent has done that. But as I'm out in the world meeting so many people, and I met 3 people at my book conference in Mexico last week because I did an open mic on this, and people came up to me after and said, me too. Almost every time it was a parent.
We didn't say who it was, and I didn't know if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
obviously
Oh, it is. And that messes with you even more because you're like, really? It's so confounding that that would happen.
absolutely. And I'm assuming with your mom, she's in denial that it could possibly happen, if I'm not wrong here.
Or has accepted it did and can't deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
as people are listening, you'll hear life changes, but in essence, you also there's a freedom to it too, isn't there, Kim, of being able to let go and share?
Yeah, there really is. I mean, it used to be something that I would share about and later feel icky. I don't feel that way anymore. Now I share about it and I'm so empowered by it being part of me, but not all of me. In early recovery, it feels like it's all of you. You're like, I can't get enough distance from this. And now I realize it's like, for example, if you look at yourself, you have so many parts to you. If you unpack your life, you have so many different lanes that you've traveled. This is just one lane I've traveled, and it's a very big lane because I'm an author and I'm a speaker, so I have to talk about it more than anybody else will, so I can give permission to people who need to talk about it just a little bit.
Oh, that's so well put. I love that, and so true.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That is amazing. Throughout my journey, there were so many things I thought were impossible. Changing careers, starting a business, becoming the co-founder and CEO of a nonprofit, launching a podcast. Thank you to all of you who listen and download in 913 cities around the globe. Creating an international forum with Changemaker speakers where it's attended by people from 7 countries. Launching the Inspiration from Everyday Changemakers annual magazine, and soon to be publishing a book with other incredible changemakers. Becoming a certified professional coach, leaving a 25-year relationship, and overcoming my 27-year fear of flying. But I did them all, not because I had every answer, but because I learned how to stop letting the how hold me back. Join me on May 13th for When Your Why is Greater Than Your How. It is a Zoominar that will be interactive and connective. And together, we will be able to help each other get through the how. Because when your why is stronger, you are able to accomplish so much more. Go to todayisthedayliveit.com to register for this free Zoominar. So let's talk about, how did you even get started into the whole book world, right? Book
Hmm.
coach, obviously author, but where did Kim's journey start in her career?
Wow, let me try to give you the short version of that. Because if we'll be here all day. Um, I started at 21. All I wanted to do was make movies. That's it. That was it. I hustled my ass to New York City and I started working in movies. And then when I became a producer in movies at a very young age, at 25, and we're not talking glamorous Hollywood, we're talking like low budget indie New York, best of times, hardest of times, developing a lot of the scripts with the writers. So I was always in development. I was always trying to get the next book to get made into a movie. I had met this author, Gavin Lambert, who had worked with, he had worked on this movie called Inside Daisy Clover with Robert Redford and Natalie Wood. So what time I met him, he was like 80, but we developed this book of his called The Slide Area. And I started making these screenplays and I started writing screenplays and I started being good at writing screenplays. And then I got a screenplay produced into a movie called American Reunion, not the one with Jason Biggs. This is one about like high school friends. And it's on Amazon. You can stream it. But when I left that whole movie world and I started to have kids and I started to face some of these big things in my life, alcoholism, sexual abuse, I realized I didn't want to go back to movies. It was just that time was done. And I felt very confused. I was like, oh my God, I have literally no skills like that I could put on a resume. Like I tried to get jobs. They were like, what? You've run sets? What does that mean? But the one thing that was common through it was I knew books and I knew books really well and I knew writing really well. So I went to a business conference in Arizona in 2015 on the suggestion of someone in AA. And they said, you just need to go and figure out your life. And I went, and that woman who ran that business conference said, you're going to be a book coach. And I said, I don't even know what that is. And a woman got up from the back. We're talking 400 women at this conference and said, I'll hire you today. And she became my first client for $5,000. She hired me. And the irony is, the conference, I hired that coach, that business coach, that cost $5,000. So it was literally this like reciprocity of energy and money. And that woman is writing a book about money, ironically. She became a close friend. But that's sort of where it took off and got me to where I am today, where I just wrapped a part of my business in December that I'm not going to continue with. That was that journey of taking clients from the beginning all the way to the end. Um, I spent a year plus with clients and I loved it so much. The victory of their books, nothing to published was amazing. But today I have made the choice that I'm doing what's called a book roadmap intensive, which is a 1 day intensive where I take the best part of what I do, which is I lay out a tight roadmap for them that they can go write that book that doesn't turn into a mess that someone has to fix later. Because I have found over 10 years of doing this, people that do not outline well in the beginning. And I'm not just talking scrappy outlining, I'm talking deep outlining, asking all the right questions, end up with a book that doesn't have to go through intensive amounts of editing. And that is really what I want to save people from because I have spent 10 years helping people edit many drafts of their books after we have gone through like a really deep outline process. And I know their journey has been a lot easier than people that don't work with me.
Well, that's what did it, wait, I still have to go back to the story. You knew I had to go back to that story, right? Because there's so many things that happen every day in our life. We can either choose, you could have chosen to tell the person from AA, now,
Right.
I can't, I don't have the money. I don't want to, I'm afraid to go, whatever it would be, could be your excuse. Um, but you said, okay, I'll go. And I don't know the details all around that, but you went. And then somehow somebody said, you have to be a book coach. That's what you're going to do. They told you, they
Yeah.
felt that they had enough permission to tell you
Yes.
that was what you were going to do. And then somebody said, I'll hire you today. How does that ever think about that? It's
I
crazy.
know. I know it's wild. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that really helped this journey, and that was after I got my divorce and I had my two little kids and I was single parenting, 50% of the time, I knew that I needed to start from the very beginning. I can't tell you why I knew that. I just knew I had to start from the very beginning, and so I got a job at Trader Joe's. And I bagged groceries and I loaded meat. If you have not been humbled until you've had pork juice dropped on your head in a walk-in freezer. And I've had people yell at me and I've had to get carts out of the parking lot. To this day, I always bring my cart back to the cart place because I saw how many people leave their carts. Anyway, it's a sidebar. I had to burn like the phoenix rising from the ashes. I had to go to the very incineration of self to rise again. And that is why by the time I got to a conference in Manzana, Arizona at the Ritz on like my only $200 and listened was because I had gone from Trader Joe's to substitute teaching to, I had done the scrappy, hard hour rage work to see I I was ready on this new path. So I had to sort of cut all ties. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to do that, but I can't tell you how many women came into Trader Joe's. I'm working for $11 an hour stacking crackers. And women are coming in to see me from the elementary school and going, "Oh my God, you're so brave. How did you do it? I want to leave my husband. I want to start a new life, but I'm so scared. You're so brave." I'm like, "Girl, I'm stacking crackers." But it was a change that they couldn't do. They couldn't give themselves permission to take it to change.
Right. Right. And it makes perfect sense why you're going back to that. And it so resonates with me. As I told you, 50 was the 40 with permission. So when you had
Right.
first told me about your whole permission platform, I was like, so good. So good,
Mhm.
so important. The message is so important. But also, there's so many messages here. We talk about abuse. We talk about AA. We talk about you standing up and leaving your husband, because it was time, and working at Trader Joe's and stocking shelves and cashing out, and then just a few minutes ago you talked about making the most amount of money that you ever made in your life. So how does one that's sitting and listening to this thinking, it's never going to happen for me. Sounds great for her. And I know
Mhm.
I've listened to so many, I'm sure you have too, all those inspirational things. And you're like, how can I get there? I have no idea what my journey is going to be, because sometimes we don't listen to the messages because fear comes
Right.
into play. Can you share a little about how you pushed through the fear as those messages were coming?
Sure, absolutely. The buying a house was, and I'm writing a book about that, for women, teaching them how to buy a house, was really one of the most wild experiences I've ever had. And I'll tell you that even though I consciously knew I was saving money for the house, and I knew that someday I would have a house, it wasn't till later when I bought it, how many random people said to me, "Oh, I was at a conference with you in 2018 and you told me you were going to buy a house." And I was like, "I did?" Or I was at a women's thing and someone said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember we were in that circle together and all you talked about was buying the house." I was just telling and projecting and validating all the time without even knowing it. So if you want something, like, be aware of how much you are talking about it, because when we talk about it, we create it. So if you want something, share about it, talk about it, vision board it, like, we need all the things we can to make it actually happen. And then let go of the timing. Let go of the how, let go of the where, let go of the who. Because I'll tell you, when I went looking to buy a house in Los Angeles on only $500,000, which is almost impossible, I kept being moved farther and farther east on the Google map into areas that the crime reports lit up bright red. And I have two young daughters, and I was going to live by myself. And I thought, God, I know you're not going to put me in some place that's dangerous. So then I said, I won't live any farther west than 69th Street or 70th Street. And I won't live anywhere past Vermont, right? This is almost like kind of getting toward downtown LA. This is South Central. I had been moved over into a very, all black and brown neighborhood, which doesn't mean it's dangerous. It's just a fact. It's just a, if you do the research of South Central, it's predominantly been Hispanic and black. It wasn't white, it hasn't been white since the 20s when they all moved because they were scared of all the black and brown people. It's a true fact. So I'm looking at this and I said, I don't want to be anywhere past 70th or farther than Normandy. I literally got a house on 69. Like, and run block below. Literally, I mean, you can't make this shit up. And nobody else put in an offer but me. We're talking a time that I had put in offers on things that I would have never gotten because people kept outbidding people. The bank literally, and it was a foreclosure, so they couldn't wait to get me in there. It was like, I mean, it literally, when it happened like in 24 hours. But it took
My
7 years to get ready. So you never know when it's gonna happen. Just be ready. You got to be ready to write that check. You've got to be ready to pack your shit. You've got to be ready to go. Don't say you're ready and not be ready. Be ready for when it's going to come. Do all your preparation work and have deep faith. Even on days that you don't think you have faith, somehow pull out that faith and have deep faith. Because there will be evidence. For me, it was $20,000 in my bank account. I was like, I have 5% on 500,000. I knew. I was like, I can write a check. I will write a check. Got pre-approved for my mortgage. I am pre-approved. I'm pre-approved. I have $20,000. I have a kick-ass real estate agent. It's just a matter of time. Oh my God, I'm not finding anything. This is ridiculous. Well, wait a minute. Where do I want to live? Okay, here's my rules. And then it just eventually, it's not rocket science. Eventually, the manifestation and the fact finding and the preparation leads to a win. But people don't want to do that. They want to, there's a lot of magical thinking and complaining,
Yes.
especially with
And
women. There's a lot of magical thinking and a lot of complaining, and women need to get over that and start just getting into action is what they need to do.
oh yes. And I am all about manifestation. There's so many stories I could share about how putting it out there, saying it was going to happen, even though I didn't know how. So I have this whole program that I run called When Your Why is Greater Than Your How. And
Ooh,
so
ooh,
that's a program that I
ooh.
run, and I love it because it's really very, very true. And so, coming from kind of an abusive relationship myself and trying to figure out how to get out, and just kept putting out there, I started buying things for the new place that it took 10 years till I had the new place, but I kept hiding those things.
That's amazing.
And I would give them to my sister to hold for me until I would have my own place. And they're hanging up in this place. Yes. So
Oh,
it's,
oh,
so
that's
I,
gonna make me cry. That's so amazing.
oh, thank you. But that's why I feel so, all the things you talk about, I'm like, yes, yes. I just like want to just keep nodding my head like a bobblehead
Yeah,
over here, going,
yeah.
yes, yes, because everything you're saying is just so true. And I think that you are also spot on, is that we hope that we could wave this magic wand, that what we want is just going to happen because we want it so badly. And there's lots of things I want and I don't know how to get. We're all in that space. We're all
Mhm,
learning. We're humans, and that
mhm,
the process is long. My thing is, I always like to try to put myself in the room with people who are smarter than me so I can learn from them. I
mhm,
don't have to be the smartest. If your ego gets in the way, and we talked about ego, if your
mhm.
ego gets in the way, you'll never be the smartest in the room, and you'll hold yourself back from getting things you want because you won't learn anything.
Right, right. I do think, and this is a yes, and if I may add to that, we can
Please?
over believe, like I don't know if over believe is the right word, but we can think we need more information than we actually need. We actually know exactly what we need to do when we're focused on it, when we're focused on the why, and
Yes,
then the how is like just don't guru someone, just get a fact from them. Usually it's like,
exactly.
oh, you use that spreadsheet program? Oh God, that just made my life so easy. I don't need more from you. I just need the spreadsheet program name. Can you email it to me? We then think we need to like guru people, right? So like you have a lot of people go to Tony Robbins. I've never been attracted to that kind of model, but my permission panel, I understand why he's so popular. I mean, people are like, they want some kind of big guru answer. And there's no guru answer. Tony Robbins just has done really well at what Tony Robbins does. That doesn't mean he's going to tell you how to do something else really well. You have to actually go start doing it,
What
yourself.
what I feel like the promotion there is, because I agree with you on this, is that it's the excitement and community that is events create that
Right,
make people feel like they have permission
right,
to go
right.
after when they leave. I have permission now. You always had the same permission. Now you have excitement. Now you have
Mhm.
community. And
Right,
that's what launches you, is the excitement and the community. You still have the power to have the excitement prior,
right, right,
but
right.
and you could,
100%.
and then a lot of people don't know where to find their community. And that's the
Mm,
one thing. The other thing that I will say, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because I have this whole platform as well. It's, if you can't get a seat at the table, create your own. And that's the same thing
love that.
with your book. And when somebody writes, and Changemakers is going to be a compilation book coming out hopefully at the end of this year. I may be, sidebar for those listening, I may be picking Kim's brain here, as I work.
Go for it. Go
Make
for it.
it, yeah, you make it somebody else that wants to pick your brain here. But I can say that a lot of people are afraid to start their own table, build their own table, I should say. I don't know how. I think you have to guru, you don't have to, you do know how. It's just the belief that you can make it happen because your why is greater than your how. And if you can't get a seat at the table, or the people you're sitting at the table with are not your people, you need to go
Mhm,
to a new table or build
mhm,
a table and invite
mhm,
them. So
mhm,
Changemakers became my table where I thought I was inviting people, but can I tell you, all of you have taught me
mm,
so much. And I have
mhm,
met the most incredible and amazing people by opening the door to something that I never knew would be what it's been and what it's growing to be. And
mhm.
it took years. So for those listening, it didn't happen. Just like Kim was saying, doesn't happen overnight. Our patience level, just take a breath, keep going. You'll hear me say something at the end of every podcast. I'll say it at the end of this one. It's the small steps. Sometimes they're just small, just
Yeah.
take them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very true. I looked away because I'm gonna do a post on LinkedIn after this about you because all the things you're
Oh,
saying are so
oh.
amazing. Why is greater than your how, and if you can't get a seat at the table, make a table. And the whole thing about Tony Robbins, I hadn't really connected that he's creating excitement in a community and giving them permission to leave and go try something. And I'm like, well, I could be like Tony Robbins. I could be like having permission conferences, right? Where people like get permission, mainly women. Can you imagine only women in those rooms?
Absolutely. Please invite me. I would love to be part of it when you
You could be a speaker. You could be a
I'm
speaker.
ready.
You're so good. You're so good. You're so
I'm
good.
ready. I would love to come to California. I have never been there. So you let me know and I
You've
will
never
fly
been
out.
to California?
No.
Okay, well, now is a bad time because LA is just a mess with all the fires and everything. So
Yeah, but we'll figure that out. But yes, but now you're part of the Changemaker family, so I'm
thank
thrilled.
you. Thank
I'm
you.
thrilled to have you as part of the Changemaker family. I absolutely want to keep you coming back to share your updates, but I also want to see what other parts of your journey do you want to share with the listeners that you feel are really, really important and impactful?
The making the shift this year in my business to serve differently has been really a lot of work in the interiority of that because I kind of made it to the top of my game. I charged what I wanted to charge. I attracted the clients I wanted to attract. I made it. To then throw that away and start again. And the reason why I did that is I need more time. I need more time to develop an app I'm really passionate about kids being accepted to college that aren't A students. I'm passionate about developing an imprint for women like yourself who have powerful books that need to get out in the world. And if I don't change my business, I'm with a partner who I'm madly in love with, and we love to travel, and I love to travel with my kids, so I need more time to travel and also go to book conferences and all that. So I wasn't able to do those things in the old model because I was editing 10 books a week. Now with this new service, I can launch people, but I don't have to hold their hand for a whole year. I get to do these other things. When you give yourself permission to change the model of your life when it's working financially, that's scary because you're like risking money potentially or not. I could make more money than I've ever made in my life in this new model and have 20 more hours a month.
Mm.
It's gonna work. I'm gonna tell you, it's going to work. And when it does, it's going to be amazing. So my point is, it's okay to change even when you're at the top.
Oh, I love that. That
Yeah.
is
Don't be
incredible.
afraid. Don't be afraid because there's more top. Our best ideas are God's smallest ideas.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I know that we mentioned, and I want to go back because I know sometimes people like to hear more detail about something. And you said featured as today, I'm reading from your bio here, today's show, motivational book of the month on the Kelly Clarkson show. Give us a little bit about that. And people like to hear, like, especially with recognizable names, people are like, okay, so tell me more. What happened with that?
Right. I had a client, Andrea DeWitt. She came to me, no book credits, no followers. She had been in academia, scared as hell to write a book. Who is she to write a self-help book? And we developed this book. We had a lot of it in the outline. I mean, our first ideation, it was all there. But through the process of writing the book, we came up with this name, claim, and reframe concept, which she trademarked. And then she went out and hustled and got a small press that had distribution through Penguin, which is possible. You can get a small press. You don't need an agent to get a small press that has distribution with a major five, one of the major five publishers. And somehow, without even a publicist, through this hustle, someone got a hold of the book and gave it to the book person at the Today Show. And that's when she got featured. So my point is there was nobody was paid $10,000. There was no nepotism. It was just hard work, focus. She was like a dog with a bone. That's how those things happen. The Wall Street business top, he was number three. His name is Alan Maxwell. And he wrote a book called The System is Unforgiving, Play by the Rules and Win. We would have been number one if Alex Trebek hadn't died. Alex
Oh my,
Trebek died and his memoir came out. So we were like, we lost number one. There are some situations with, and I don't think there is a Wall Street Journal top 10 business books anymore. I think it's gone now. So this was a bunch of years ago. You can pay an exorbitant amount of money to a marketing firm to drive your book sales up for a week. And that gets your numbers high enough to land on there. So that's just a trick.
yeah,
But his book did sell. I mean, his book did sell. They're legitimate. It was legitimate.
right.
It's just you got to have the dinero to do
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. I'm learning myself. I'm such
Yeah.
a novice in this, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of tricks in the trade to the trade of this, and it's very interesting. For me, it's everything with me is about it being heart-centered and being able to help people. So it's kind of like all of
Yeah.
this money and this and that. Like I'm actually learning how to manifest as much because I need that, but I always come from the other direction. And so when you talk about all of these tricks and some of them, even the followers now, you can buy followers. Obviously, most people know that and all of that. It's so interesting to me that how you have your permission um roundtables and discussions, that's all authentic, and it's all the people who want to be in the room. Where we decided that it was time to buy things like followers and subscribers and best-selling book number one and at the top, that part, it just takes away the authenticity of things sometimes, and that part is tough for me because I'm come from the other space of like, let's just keep everything really authentic and really good, and I'm all about energy like you.
Right. But that model of thinking though prevents you from getting your book out to as many people as you possibly want. So
Exactly.
if the reader is the goal in mind, it doesn't matter if somebody puts a lot of market. First of all, everybody should be throwing money into marketing on their book. If they're not, then they're not really an author. That's just bottom line. They're just going to be 1,770,000 on Amazon and they're just going to sit
Right.
there. My clients are people who are willing to throw a lot of marketing money at their book because they're so passionate about their books getting out to readers. If that means a 1 week marketing blitz to get your book on Wall Street Journal, or working with a publisher and doing all this marketing to get your book on the Today Show or whatever, any client of mine that has done anything substantial around their books, throwing $100,000 conferences, I mean, anything, their books have received the most play. than the people who've done nothing.
Yeah. And you can't do nothing. Otherwise, nobody will ever find
Can't
you.
do nothing. And really, I mean, the book industry is the only lack of authenticity would be if the words within the pages
Yeah.
were not real. How you get those words out is another thing. I mean, I don't buy followers, so I don't
Yeah.
suggest any of my clients buy followers. I
Yeah.
don't buy followers on Substack where my permission. I don't do any of that. But I do think if you have an opportunity to get yourself out there, then
I
I
agree
mean,
with you 100%. I
yeah,
was talking about like buying the followers and that kind of thing. It's like just so that you look like you have, because the more numbers, and you know that we all know
right.
this, the more numbers and followers you have, the more people think that you're valid.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I know in the book world we're kind of all onto that. I mean, in my imprint, when I start acquiring books this year, and I'll be acquiring 8 books, there's, I'm on to that. I mean, there's so many other things you look at in a proposal. Like, who are the influencers you know? Like, how are you putting your book out there? What kind of money are you willing to spend? So we're looking for the hustlers. We're not looking for the diddler dabblers.
So now tell everybody who your client is and what types of people you like to work with.
Sure. I work with thought leaders. I work with experts. I work with someone who has a book inside them that has just been mind clutter and it's all over the place and they're tired of it being in 9 different directions. And they want someone to sit them down and map it out with them so that they can get motivated to start the book writing process versus being in that stuck place of not beginning. And I'll be launching a lead magnet in mid-March that is a series of questions and a video with me where you can learn so much more about how to get started. And then from there, it's an easy click to sign up for a day with me. So I make it very easy for people who are so busy and so, successful that we do, this short process of a couple months and they're out.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for sharing your story. Is there any last minute things you wanted to say or share?
No, I mean, you can find me at kimohara.com and you can read my Substack and I give you permission.substack.com. And I guess I'll leave everybody, with this. Think about one area of your life today that you need to give yourself more permission and try it and see what happens.
I love that. Thank you again, Kim, for sharing your heart, your story, and being vulnerable with us today and sharing so. And I'm looking forward to having you as part of the Changemaker family now.
Yes. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. And I'll say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you just do not yet own tomorrow. So, what small or large steps are you taking today to get yourself closer to your goals? Have a great week, everyone. Bye,
Bye.
Kim.
Bye.